Welcome back to Prof E Plays. I'm Prof E, and we are picking up here with more Cepheus Universal. Uh, in this, I believe it's episode 4, if I recall correctly. Now, the previous episode, we introduced our third um, character, though I didn't actually do the character creation on screen because we had weird recording issues. So we introduced that third character, Vince Clark, who is the one who has kind of the pilot navigation abilities in our group. And we also spent a little bit of time hacking into the Servants of Dez's computer system so that we could find out exactly where their leader, who's, if I give a name, it's Amy Haney, I believe. Yes. Right. So to find out where Amy Haney was going to be, uh, and this was 4 days from now, uh, I'm just going to say, in terms of the timeline, that right now we are Monday. Let's say we're about noon or so, right? And so the assassination is going to be at the end of the week on Friday when Amy has a meeting in City Hall. Who exactly she's meeting with, we probably got that information. I'm guessing probably the mayor or something like that. Now, I am saying that they're in Lanor City, which is the capital of this planet. So it could possibly be even with like the dictator of the because it's a charismatic dictator that uh, runs this planet. So it very well could be with him or her. I actually haven't defined who this person is at this point in time. So returning now to the next scene. So in the next scene, I want to figure out um, well what is going to happen next. So remember, the first step is always to form what our expected scene is. And my expected scene right now is that I think it makes sense for us to try to case City Hall, to try to figure out where are the weak points, something like that. This is something that it makes sense that Jeannie would be the one who really kind of take the lead on this, as she's the one with experience as an agent. She also has the investigate skill, which I think would be a reasonable skill to use in this particular instance. All right, so that is what I'm imagining is going to happen. Now let's see what actually happens. So I'm going to take my percentile dice here. We'll roll them on the scene transition table in the gemulator and find out. Now, because we had in the previous scene, we did fulfill our goal of gathering the information that we wanted to gather. That means a -10 is going to be applied to this roll. So I got an 87, so it gets adjusted to a 77. 77 is a negative alteration, right? So that means that there is, by definition, it is a slight change to the expected scene, like changing a single aspect like location, goal, or participants. So this negative alteration is going to be something that would be working against us. I need to roll up the focus. So again, rolling the percentile dice and dropping them on the floor. I'll just grab a different die. It'd be easier to grab a different die than it is going to be to get that one. Okay, let's roll it. I got 52, no adjustment on focus. 52 indicates player character. Right, so that means there is some alteration to the player characters. So I'm trying to think of, okay, well, let's figure out which of our player characters it is. So I'm going to take a d6. So I'm going to say on a 1 or 2, it's going to be Genie. 3, 4, it's going to be 6, Vince. 2, so it is Genie. So there's some alteration related to Genie herself. I'm thinking that, like, it being a slight change, maybe there's some reason that she can't do it, right? I mean, she would be recognized. We know that she had some issues in the past. I mean, she might. I mean, she wasn't a very high-profile agent. She was only like working as an agent for like 4 years or something like that before she was booted because of uh, not handling a situation that went south very well. We'll just put it that way. So, what then could the alteration be? Well, I'm going to roll again just for inspiration on the Oracle table. So, what is our alteration going to be? Related to Genie, 62. So, obediently, 80, curse, 72. Obediently curse allies. Okay. Now, I don't think that Jeannie is like working against them in any kind of significant way or something like that. Um, okay, maybe the alteration is that they were planning to all go in, but then there's some problems in security, right? So I think that maybe she's going to be on her own. So by obediently curse allies, what that means is that she is basically saying to security, fine, forget these guys. But I'm going to come in, and I'm going to assume that security is going to go ahead and allow her into at least the public areas in City Hall. So then she's going to do some investigation here. Now her investigation skill is at a 1, which means I will roll 2d6. I'll add 1 to that, and then we will see what happens as far as that goes. I don't think that this investigation is going to be particularly difficult. So let's go ahead and roll. And we've got, oh, actually, we rolled an 8. So it gets adjusted to a 9. Right, so she does actually make some progress here, right, in terms of, finding out what she needs to find out in terms of the the security situation in general, at least in the public areas here. So I think, so that's a good question. I want to go to the Oracle now, right? So I don't know, like, could she identify any specific weakness? To me, that seems likely that she would be, or actually very likely that she would be able to identify a specific weakness. Otherwise, there probably aren't very many weaknesses. Oh, 15. No but. Right, so she can't identify a specific weakness, but the focus of that but is their character again. Okay. Okay, that doesn't really make much sense. So what would be the but here? Right. Okay, so it's going to be a weak no. So she can't identify specific weaknesses, but it does make sense. The but here would be that they're kind of general weaknesses. I think that might be. Um, okay, this is what I'm thinking. That while she's not identifying, oh, like right there is where a sniper would be or something like that, instead she can identify that the security here is just kind of lax in general, right? That they don't have a whole lot of guards on staff, and people are just kind of coming and going, so it would be fairly easy for somebody to come in. So I think that that might be the issue here. That like once you are past the door, right, there really isn't a lot of security. So like looking around, she doesn't see like a lot of security cameras or anything like that. So I think that that is what we have discovered is that um, as we case City Hall, find out security is relatively lax. So her scene transition here that was a an alteration, if I recall correctly, which just meant she had to go in alone. The location was City Hall. The goal, of course, was to determine security. And so our summary of what happened here would be that we determined that security is at least it has to be somewhat tight at the door, right? But once you're in, then you're in, right? So I'm going to say security is tight at the door, but lax inside, at least in the public areas. Okay, so I think that that is a reasonable um, result here. So, how did we do in terms of our scene goal? I think we succeeded at that one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to mark a check here to note that we did, in fact, reach our goal there. Now, how long does this take? I'm just going to roll a d6 and say that's the number of hours we spent in here. 2 hours. So I'm going to say this puts us now at, so I'm just counting down time. So we were Monday at 2 p.m. And so we were right around midday before 2 p.m. We kind of wrap up our investigation and head back out, and we confer with each other. Jeannie sharing the information that she has found. And I'm thinking about where else we need to go with this, because remember, our goal is ultimately to prevent this assassination. So, a few things we can do. One possibility is it might make sense for us to actually contact law enforcement to see if we could get them involved in some way. Now, I think that our party is hesitant to do that for a few reasons. One is that so I guess here there is the Doylean explanation and the Watsonian explanation, right? So Doylean, that is from the author's standpoint, it doesn't make a very good story for you to say, "Hey, I'm going to have somebody else solve the problem." So we're not doing that. Like, Uh, the Watsonian explanation, so inside the world itself, would be that one, Jeannie kind of wants to prove herself still, right? That she is in fact have the skills needed, right, in order to be a good agent. So that means she wouldn't want to rely too much on the official agents that are here. We also have the problem that I believe it was Lionel that spent some time in prison, right? So he probably doesn't want to interact right with law enforcement any more than absolutely necessary. And then you also have Vince. I think that in his case, I don't know that he would be as hesitant, except that he's just kind of rebellious by nature. So it's that being the way he is, I think that he would have a tendency to want to try to take things into his own hands, if at all possible. Right. So I think that that's kind of what our motivations are for our characters. So given that, going to the authorities, probably not going to do that. That's going to be a last resort. So instead, the question is, what can they do to provide the protection necessary? So I think that there may be some more investigation that is needed, that needs to happen here. We have plenty of time to do it, by the way, because without knowing the specific plans, it's going to be rather difficult, right, for us to offset those plans. Right? So that's one thing. Um, so I think learning more about what the plans are, this is going to be dangerous, and that's why I'm kind of hesitant to do that because is it really true that like how rash, right, are our characters? I guess is what it comes down to. Like Jeannie, what do we know about her? She had her cover blown. She shot her way out. Okay, yeah. So she has some impulsiveness there, perhaps. Lionel, Lionel was in prison and he's making a new start here. So, I mean, he may have some impulsiveness in him as well, as that is not unusual amongst those that get arrested for committing crimes. And Vince is rebellious by nature. Okay, so, I mean, it makes some degree of sense. They might have this idea that, yeah, they actually do kind of want to try to gather more information from the Sons of Okshani, being the criminal organization that they know is going to be not infiltrating, is going to be assassinating Amy Haney, or at least is planning to. All right, so I think that that is kind of where the next scene needs to go. So we've learned some about the location where things are going to happen. So the next step then, and I think this would take us from late afternoon into the evening, we want to do some more investigation into this organization itself. And specifically, if we can figure out what these plans are. Now, how to do that is going to be a challenge. So when I think about the various skills we have, right, so Jeannie just has general investigation skills. So this would be kind of the snooping around kind of ability. Uh, Very much like we were casing City Hall, we could do the same thing elsewhere. Lionel is our hacker, so he might be inclined to do that kind of thing. He also has carousing as a skill. So I'm wondering whether this might be something where he can go, maybe be in the right places to get some. I know there's skill descriptions in here somewhere. To get some information about that plan, just through the rumor mill, that kind of thing. That might actually be a reasonable way to handle this, honestly. Okay, there are the skill descriptions. So, carousing, social skills, including picking up gossip or rumors. There we go. Making friends and reading people's body language. All right, so that makes perfect sense. This is something Lionel may want to do. Now, we also, at this point, we have given effectively a spotlight scene, right, to Lionel already. He had the first scene as the hacker. Then we gave a spotlight scene to Genie as the investigator. So is there something where we might want to be able to spotlight something that Vince can do, right? So Vince's abilities, vac suit, pilot, navigation, comms, ground vehicle, and bribery. Okay. So I'm actually imagining bribery here might work, and he has a lot of money. His 92,000 credits. I didn't bother spending any of it yet. So he has like no equipment, but he does have lots of money. So there might be the possibility here for doing some bribing. Perhaps he can get some like lower level people in the Sons of Akshani to possibly get him connected in some fashion or get them into a point where they can uh, get some information. So I think let's go back, imagine the scene. Okay. Right, so our expected scene here, I think the idea of bribing our way in is reasonable. Given what we know about the Sons of Akshani, right, they are really interested in maintaining their kind of powerful position and the resources that they have available to them, right? So, as I say, they're just kind of a traditional organized crime group, but really the purpose is for them to make money off of this, right? So, so they're perfectly willing to take care of people, but in exchange for favors and the like. Right, so I'm thinking that here our expected scene is going to be that we are going to bribe some lower level people here to get us in touch with those we think might have information, and then we'll see what kind of information we can get. Right, so expected scene is bribe the Sons of Okshani, you know, mooks to get in. So I think that's what we're going to do. All right. So first, let's go ahead and make our scene modification roll and see what happens with our scene transition. All right, 32 minus 10 gives us a 22, no change. Okay, so in this case, the expected scene is what's happening. Now, we already know where their headquarters are, so that gives us a good starting place. Now, I would like to, well, it's a hideout. So, okay, so we don't necessarily know their headquarters, we know hideout. So I was kind of imagining that at first this was, it's just like a classic pub run restaurant or something like that. But no, it's more of a hideout, so it's going to be somewhat more secretive. So I'm thinking something like a warehouse or something along those lines. Let's go ahead and actually make a note of that. That their hideout is in a warehouse. Oh, I also need to add a location in the form of City Hall. I had not yet added that to my list. Okay, so scene transition, no change. Location then would be the hideout. And our scene goal is to get connected with someone higher than the MOOC level is the idea. So we want to try to connect with a contact in the Sunspok Shiny. All right. So I think that's what we're going to do here in this scene. So we go to the hideout. So I guess one question that may be worth asking is how they're going to react to us. So I've not really used any reaction roles yet. So I do have here an encounter table. Uh-huh, right. Okay. So I think the three of them are going to go and are certainly going to be lying like with this. So in order to try to get in, the first thing we need is some kind of reaction roll. Right, so the reaction roll here, so we are approaching kind of, I imagine they've guards stationed or something like that. That seems extremely, that's likely to the point where I'm not going to bother rolling to see whether it's true. Right, so I want to know what the reaction to us will be. So here is how this works, right? So you would roll the reaction table. It's a 2d6 roll. Then you have four different possible modifiers. Okay, so the first modifier is +1 for possession of carousing or streetwise, if applicable. We do have carousing from one of our party members, so we're going to add 1 to this roll. Secondly, +1 if the NPC is providing some sort of service. They really aren't, so it's not like they're being paid, right, to do this thing. -1 if the world population is 9 or higher, and it is. Right, so you have a +1 and a -1, and then a -2 if the PCs are police or naval crewmen. They no longer are. Right, so I'm going to say that dice modifier does not apply here. And so that means it's just going to be a straight up 2d6 roll, and we'll see what happens. We got a 7, so it's a perfectly neutral roll. Right, so that indicates here they treat the PCs like everyone else, right? So they're not particularly hostile, but at the same time, they're not particularly friendly either, right? So that's the position that we are in right now. So I think maybe the way that I'm going to run this, right, is that my bribery roll is going to try to push that reaction. And so I'm going to say whatever the effect of the roll is would be how much I can push that roll of 7. For us to have friendly and therefore I think that we want, we need a total of 9, and so we need an effect of 2. So it means I would need a total of 10 for this to actually work. Now, it might be that we can do this through multiple rolls. So I think maybe that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep rolling in this conversation until we push that 7 either right to a 9 or to a 5. So a 5 would tip us from neutral to guarded, at which point I think it's likely that they're not going to allow us to come in. Uh, on the other hand, if we push up to a 9, then they will allow us in and we'll try to make the contact right with somebody in the organization. They'll get us the information that we really want. So I think that makes some degree of sense. It's kind of a little mini game here. And let's say that the bribe is just going to be 100 credits per roll. I think that makes some degree of sense. Right? So we're not asking them to do anything huge, right? Just to get us connected with somebody so that we can, you get the information that we want. We're not going to be that honest about it. But we need connections because we think that possibly we might be able to help each other out. Is kind of we'll be very vague about this. We try to avoid blatantly lying, but at the same time, share as little as possible. Okay, so let's go ahead and have Vince roll this. Vince has bribery 1. So the first roll, so his first attempt, so his first 100 credit offer. Well, he rolls a 5. That'd be an effect of -3, right? So our 7 gets knocked down to a 4 very, very quickly, right? So he hands over the 100 credits. I'm going to say that does actually happen. Right? At which point the mooks guarding the hideout happily receive the 100 credits and very, very clearly um, make it obvious that they are no longer welcome here. Now, because weapons are illegal here, I'm going to say that we are not actually carrying anything. Nobody in our party has any kind of blunt weapon anyway. The only one who has a weapon is Jeannie. And, yeah, she's not going to be carrying it around with her. Right? So yeah, I think that they make very clear that they do have uh, weapons on them. Yeah, we gotta go. We gotta go. So this scene, it turns out, did not turn out quite so well. Right, so what happened here, right? We tried to bribe. Now that we did not go so bad that they actually turned hostile and were going to attack us, fortunately. But they did become much more guarded. They didn't trust us. They're not going to allow us any favors or anything like that. So in that case, we tried to bribe, right, the guards, and we were turned away, even though they kept the bribe. Terrible. Just terrible. Anyway, all right, so I'm gonna say that that is definitely a fail there. All right. How long did that take? Well, I'm gonna roll a d6 number of hours. That took a total of 6 hours. So it's now Monday, 8 p.m. Um, and in the next scene, we are going to have a modifier of +10 on our scene transition roll. So it means it's more likely to be something unexpected or some kind of alteration. So I think I'm going to go ahead and call it there. Um, So we'll see what comes of this, see if we manage to save Amy Haney's life, or if we decided that it's worthwhile, given that we know she may not be as good of a person as we hope. And so let's go ahead and say this is Prof E signing off.